So you've probably seen the headlines, maybe even seen some of the crazy stats, but this is the inside story of how one country quietly, almost secretly, built a global mobile game empire. And it all starts with a single number that changes everything. Okay, it all kicks off with this one, kind of shocking number, 37.3%. That, right there, is Vietnam's share of the entire global market for mobile game downloads. So what does that actually mean for you? Well, it means that if you go to the App Store right now and download 10 games, odds are that almost 4 of them were made in Vietnam. That's more than any other country on the planet. Yeah, that's right, even more than China. So that's the big question we're going to unpack here, right? How on earth did an entire industry just pop up out of nowhere and start dominating the entire world? All right, so the first secret, and this is key, it's not about money, it's not about fancy tech, it's a mindset, one that's been forged by decades of history. It's not about having more resources, it's about being more resourceful. They call it the guerrilla mindset. And this right here, this is the perfect way to think about it. The whole strategy boils down to this: one tank versus 1,000 speedboats. You see, a big Western studio might spend over 5 years building a tank, a massive, heavy, slow AAA game. Vietnamese studios, they don't even try to play that game. Instead, they launch 1,000 speedboats. They hit fast, they adapt on the fly, and they win with pure speed and agility. You know, there's actually a local saying that perfectly sums up this whole philosophy. "Cái khó lo cái khôn." It basically means that adversity is what makes you smart. It's about pragmatism, not perfection. While a developer somewhere else might be obsessing over whether their code is perfectly clean, the developer in Vietnam is asking a much more important question. Does it run? So you might be wondering, where did they even get this gut instinct for what millions of people want to play? Well, it all goes back to the net code generation. The leaders of this industry didn't grow up with a PlayStation in their living room. They grew up in these small, local internet cafes, shoulder to shoulder, playing games like Age of Empires. They didn't just study mass appeal. They lived and breathed it every single day. Okay, so the mindset makes sense. But what about the actual talent? I mean, where did all these coders and artists suddenly come from? Well, it turns out it wasn't sudden at all. This pipeline was being built kind of in secret for 2 whole decades. And it really comes down to 2 things. First, you've got the logic brain. Vietnam consistently scores near the top of the world in math and science. For a whole generation, learning to code was seen as a golden ticket. And then you have the hidden artists. For years, long before they made their own hits, Vietnam was the silent partner, the outsourcing powerhouse for the world's biggest AAA games. That created this huge pool of senior artists who are now ready to build for themselves. But this brings up a really tough question. It's a criticism you hear all the time. If they had all this talent, the smarts, the artists, why did they spend years just cloning other people's games? And the answer, when you talk to people inside the industry, is just one word: survival. Yes, you got to reframe how you think about it. This wasn't Silicon Valley, right? There weren't a bunch of angel investors just handing out cash for risky new ideas. These studios had to survive. They had to make payroll. So cloning wasn't just a shortcut. It was their university. It was a strategy to make money fast, sure, but more importantly, it was the training ground where they mastered exactly what makes a game addictive and profitable. And that brings us to the next massive piece of the puzzle. Let's call it the efficiency gap. This is where you see how they can get this just unbeatable return on investment. It's all about the cost of the talent behind these billion download hits. All right, let's get into the actual numbers here. We'll start with the captains, the product owners who steer the ship. As you can see, a junior role might start around $600 a month, and a senior lead, they're looking at $4,000 plus. Okay, now for the artists, the people making these games look amazing. You're seeing about $400 for a junior, climbing up to $2,600 for a senior role. And the coders, the developers, pretty much the same story. But, and this is super important, on top of that, project bonuses at the big studios can add thousands more. So when you put it all together, you have world-class talent at these costs. The ROI is just, it's off the charts, absolutely unmatched anywhere else. So let's recap. They've got the guerrilla mindset, they've got the deep talent pool, and they've got this insane cost efficiency. So, what's the next move? Well, the whole industry is shifting from making snacks to making full meals. This is their game plan for 2026 and beyond. And wow, this chart right here tells the whole story. Look at that huge bar on the left. That's their download share, a massive 37.3%. But then look at the bar on the right, their slice of the revenue pie. It's tiny in comparison. They've absolutely nailed the volume game, but they are way behind on actually making money from it. And that is exactly why things are changing. The old strategy of just spamming the app stores with cheap, hyper-casual clones, that era is officially over. So the big question is, how do they fix that? How do they close that revenue gap? The answer is this big pivot to what they're calling hybrid casual. It's a super smart two-step plan. First, you keep the gameplay dead simple so you keep getting those tons and tons of downloads. But then, step two, you build in these deep economy systems that actually get people to spend money. And there's a quote from an industry insider that just perfectly nails the confidence of this next move. We have the volume, we have the talent, now we are coming for the value. I mean, that's a statement right there. It's a declaration of what's coming next. Which really brings us to the final, multi-billion-dollar question. For the last decade, we've seen how Vietnam completely mastered the game of volume. No one can touch them there. So the question we're all asking now is, are they about to master value too?